Hi everyone, welcome to Yoga in Our City, sponsored by ConnectiCare. I'm Kate. I'll be leading us through a practice together today. For today's practice, I'm recommending you have a few props available. First is a yoga mat or at least a cleared space in your house where you feel comfortable to practice. And if you're practicing on a hard surface like I am, I'm recommending you soften that surface with a blanket or a towel of some sort. We will be spending a lot of time on the mat today. Other props I'm recommending could be yoga blocks if you have them available, or a cushion or a bolster if you have that, or maybe even a yoga wheel if you have that available. If you don't have any of these props available, that's okay. We're just looking for a prop for one of our poses today that has a little bit of depth, so perhaps a pillow or a folded up pillow, or a couple of stacks of towels, rolled up yoga mat, anything of the sort might work well. And feel free to get as creative as you would like in your home setting to use any props you have available to you. This practice is going to focus on opening up the heart center, and it will be a yin-based practice. If you're new to yin yoga is a primarily seated practice where we hold postures for an extended period of time, typically between 1 to 3 minutes, but we might do one pose today for about 5 minutes, with the intention of stimulating, strengthening, and reviving the deeper connective tissues of the target area to help our body move more freely, physically and energetically. For today's practice, we're going to be starting with 3 yin poses on our mat. We're going to work our way up to our feet and do a little bit of a flow. We will add some yang movement in there before ending the practice with 3 yin poses again on our mat. With this yoga practice and with any yoga practice that you participate in, it's important to keep in mind that yoga is always your practice, which means you never have to look like me or anyone else around you. Even though I'll be modeling the poses through your screen in my space, your poses do not need to look like mine in your space. Feel free to use the props and the tools you have available to you to modify each pose so you find comfort in each pose. If any pose feels painful to you, and pain might show up as a burning, throbbing, tingling, or numbing sensation, that's your body's way of telling you that that pose does not work for you, to come out of the pose, to try it a different way, or to exit the pose entirely. Okay, with that said, I think we can begin. We'll start by coming to a comfortable grounding posture. And I invite you to explore what grounding is for you. Perhaps that means you are standing, or if you are seated, perhaps it means you're elevating the hips so they're above the knees. Perhaps grounding means lying down for you. Whichever pose feels most grounding to you, I invite you to pause there, finding stillness, elongate the spine, drawing shoulders away from the ears, and if you are seated, resting the hands on the thighs, palms facing the sky. If it feels comfortable to do so, gently close the eyes. And with our first few beginning breaths of our grounding meditation, I invite you to bring your awareness to whatever is occurring on your mat. What's calling your attention today? Is it a sensation on the skin, perhaps heat or warmth? Or coolness? Is it a sensation within the body, perhaps some tightness? Is it the location where your body meets the ground? Is it the breath? Is it the headspace? Whatever it is you are experiencing, I invite you to bring open receptivity to whatever is present. That means no judgment, no manipulation, not trying to change what's here right now. Just simply noticing what's here. the mind starts to take over and wander as it naturally will, simply invite the awareness back to your mat. It's okay if that awareness changes or shifts to another place. It's okay if you have to bring that awareness back to the mat 100 times within these 5 minutes. Every time your awareness comes back to the mat, you are strengthening your mind. Placing one hand over heart center, one hand over the belly, bringing the awareness to where your hands meet your torso. On your inhale, breathe in fully and deeply in through the nose, filling the belly, the rib cage, and the chest with breath, feeling the breath enter the body and expand the body, holding the breath in at the top for a count, before releasing the breath out through the nose from the chest, then the rib cage, then the belly. Pushing out more air than you think you need to, making your exhale longer than your inhale before breathing in again through the nose, filling the belly, the rib cage, and the chest, holding the breath in at the top for a count. Exhaling the breath out through the nose from the chest, the rib cage, then the belly. When all the air has been released from the body, inhale again fully and deeply in through the nose, making this the biggest breath yet, filling the belly, the rib cage, and the chest. Holding the breath in at the top for a count, sipping in a little bit more air, really expanding that rib cage, that diaphragm, those lungs. When you can't hold the breath in anymore, gently release the breath out through the nose from the chest, the rib cage, and the belly. When all the air has been released from the breath, bring the hands back down by the sides. And when you are ready, you can open the eyes. Taking a moment to move the eyes around your external environment to take in the sights and the lights again. And when you are ready, we'll make our way into our first yin pose of this practice. Coming into a heart-opening pose. For this pose, I'm going to be using a bolster or a firm cushion. It might also work to do this with a yoga block or, as I said before, a yoga wheel, or if you don't have that, anything that you could fold up to add a little bit of height and support to the upper back would suffice. So for this pose, we're going to come to a nice seated tall position with a prop behind us and gently lower ourselves down, so that the prop comes somewhere between the mid and upper spine. And if you need some additional head support, perhaps adding another prop beneath the head to support the chin and the head, you can add that as well. Just take a minute here to notice how the upper spine feels, getting comfortable in this pose. Once you feel like you can completely relax while still feeling supported, you might choose to bring your arms out by your sides, turning yourself into a capital letter T, palms facing the ceiling. And if you're somebody who would like to add an additional target area to this pose, you might choose to bring the soles of the feet to touch, widening the knees towards the edges of the mat. In this supported fish pose, the target area here is the front of the chest. We're opening up that heart center, perhaps the inside lines of the arms. And if you are in reclined butterfly pose with the legs, you might also have a secondary target area of the inside lines of the legs. So bringing your awareness to those areas, notice what sensations are there. If you feel a mild to moderate kind of zinging sensation, that's exactly what we were meant to feel in a yin pose. So you want to maintain that sensation if you can. If you're not feeling much of anything, you can adjust the posture with your props any way you need to, maybe removing the props and just doing this lying down flat on the mat, or adding some more height to your props. Looking for that mild to moderate sensation is the first step of a yin practice, and we want to make sure that we're maintaining that zone of comfort, that's that mild to moderate zone without it being too painful. We don't want to go into pain, and we also want to make sure we're not completely restorative. We do want to feel some type of sensation. That's our body's way of telling us that the pose is working to stress those deeper connective tissues to give us the benefit of the practice. Once you have your version of reclined supported fish, completely relax into the pose, bringing deep breaths into the diaphragm, keeping your awareness on the mat for the present moment, noticing how it might change or stay the same. Because yin is a primarily still practice, it's very common for the mind to start to make itself busy, as it is conditioned to do. Noticing if that's what happened to your mind, and if it has, gently bring it back to the mat, to the present moment. Same thing as we did with our opening meditation. It doesn't matter if you have to bring that awareness back to the mat 100 times in one pose. Just the act of bringing it back is the meditation itself. And each pose in yin is an opportunity for a meditative practice. If you are in a reclined butterfly pose with the legs, gently bring the knees back together, feet flat on the mat. If your arms are out wide in a capital letter T, inhale, bring them up overhead very slowly and gently, like you're doing a full body stretch. And exhale, bring that right elbow to the mat. If you can, add some weight to that right elbow, removing the weight from whatever prop you are lying on, removing the prop out of the way, and then slowly lowering onto our backs. In between each yin pose, we use a resonance pose, which is a pose of stillness without any target area or any stimulation of a target area. So we allow our body to regain its normal sensation. It's very common for the target area to maintain a certain sensation for a couple seconds or so after we exit the pose. Especially for more spicy poses, those target areas within our body might feel vulnerable or weak. So the rest in between allows the target area to regain normal sensation before we move again. Yin is an important practice to do after you are done with your major physical activity for the day. It's not a good practice to do before doing something really physical like walking, running, jogging, hiking, yard work. Yin should come after, at the end of the day. If the upper body and perhaps the inside lines of the legs have regained normal sensation, we'll enter our second pose of the day, which is Bananasana. For this pose, bring your feet to the mat, knees pointed up to the sky. Bring the hands out by your sides. They don't have to be capital letter T, they're not going to stay there, but just keep them away from the hips. Inhale, lift the hips off of the mat ever so slightly and swing those hips over to the left edge of the mat. Then plant those hips down on the mat. So your low spine should be touching the mat. Your hips are going to the left. Then you're going to slowly straighten the legs towards the right. And as you do so, you might choose to cross one leg over the other. Once you have your legs positioned, you're going to inhale those arms up overhead and then slightly bring those over to the right as well. So if you were looking at yourself from the ceiling, you would be noticing a curve in your body, like a crescent moon or the letter C or a cashew. You're making an ever so slight curve with the body, hips going to the left, hands and feet going to the right. The target area of this pose is the left side body, perhaps from the left hip all the way up into the left shoulder. And you can experiment what it feels like to notice what it feels like with both feet flat on the mat or crossing one leg over the other. Finding a version of this pose that works best for you and then committing to it to maintain that mild to moderate sensation in the left side. Completely surrendering to the mat, noticing if you're clenching any muscles or you're engaging anywhere in the body. That's usually a sign you're a little too deep into the pose and you're trying to protect yourself from feeling pain. If that's true, come out of it a little bit, adjust the pose so you can completely release and relax into it. Both of these poses, the heart opening pose and banana asana, are great poses to do if you are somebody who spends a lot of time seated or at a desk all day. making your way out of Banana Asana on the left side by gently removing the cross if you have one ankle on top of the other. Slowly starting to make those feet come back to center. And then bringing the upper body, the hands, the head back to center. Hands can come back down by the sides. Resting on our back for a resonance pose, bringing your awareness to the left side of the body. Noticing any sensations that are the same or different from the right side of the body. And keeping your awareness there, perhaps noticing how the sensation changes with the passing seconds. Once the left side feels as though it's regained normal sensation, setting up for the right side by bringing the feet back to the mat, knees pointed up to the sky, hands out by the sides, just away from your hips any way you need to put those hands. Inhale those hips off the mat ever so slightly. Exhale, swing those hips over to the right edge of the mat, placing the low back on the mat, and then walking the legs over to the left edge of the mat. Same thing on this side, you might choose to cross one ankle over the other. Once you have your feet positioned, bringing the arms up overhead and over to the left edge of the mat. So same thing on this side, the shape your body might be making is a C shape, letter C, cashew, crescent moon, banana. It's a little bit of a curve with the body. Target area here is the right side of the body, perhaps from the hip up to the right shoulder. And everybody is different, so you might feel it in a different place alongside that right side. But we just want some stimulation of the right side body. And again, you can experiment what it feels like to have both feet flat on the mat, crossing one leg over the other. And once you have your version, completely surrender into the pose, disengaging any clenching or tension you're holding in the muscles in the body. Breathing into the right side. exhale, if you have a cross with the ankles, gently remove that cross, bringing the feet back to the center of the mat. Slowly bringing the upper body, including the shoulders and the head, back to center. The hands can come back down by the sides. Resting in resonance pose on our backs. Bringing your awareness again to how the right side feels compared to the left. Noticing as the sensations change throughout the seconds. And when it feels as though the right side and the left side have regained normal sensation, we're going to slowly make our way onto our belly. So maybe that means you roll over to one side, rolling right onto the belly, or you get there any way that works for you. Moving slowly and gently, coming into Sphinx pose, elbows beneath shoulders, hands flat on the mat, tops of the feet flat on the mat. Gently lift the head and the chest, and then relax the abdomen, allowing the hips and the belly to sink into the mat. The target area here could be the front line of the chest or the low spine. Bringing your awareness to those target areas, looking for a mild to moderate sensation, and if you have it, you can stay right there. If you don't have it, you might want to add a little bit of elevation, more extension to the spine by perhaps adding some props like yoga blocks beneath the elbows, or coming into seal pose, which would be straightening the elbows. Or if you feel too much of a sensation, lowering down, walking those fingertips forward any amount that you need to until you find your version of Sphinx pose. One of the things that might happen as we begin to enter poses that can have the potential to be a little bit more spicy is the sensation that we start with might be mild to moderate, and as the seconds or minutes pass, that sensation might change to either disappear, in which case that's an invitation from your body to go a little bit deeper, and in this pose it would be adding more extension to the spine. Or the opposite might happen. You might notice a sensation change from mild to moderate to something painful, in which case that's your body signal that you have reached the capacity of the tissues in the target area for today, and you don't want to push it anymore and hurt yourself, so walk those fingertips forward and reduce the extension in the spine. Any amount that you need to either return to that mild to moderate sensation or just exit the posture entirely. And again, one way that our body tells us that we've gone a little too deep is you might notice other muscles clenching. So what tends to happen here is people engage their thighs, their inner thighs. They're clenching their legs to try to protect that sensation in the low spine, or they clench their abdomen. And if you notice that's true for you, if you try to relax and you feel a painful sensation, that means you need to exit the pose or walk those fingertips forward any amount. You might also choose to explore what it feels like to play with the chin placement, adding some stress to the neck, perhaps lifting the chin up to the sky or down to the chest. Exhale, lower all the way down, bringing the right cheek to the mat, hands down by the sides. Resonance pose on the abdomen, noticing how the low spine feels. Once it feels as though the low spine has regained normal sensation, you have an option here to raise the feet up towards the ceiling and windshield wipe the feet from left to right. If it feels good on the spine, little low spine release. If it doesn't feel good, you don't have to do it. Bringing the legs back down to center, curling the toes, the big toes under on the mat beneath you, bringing your hands beneath your shoulders, and on your inhale, pressing the upper body into supported plank. Pausing there for a moment before lifting the knees off of the mat, coming right into downward facing dog. Moving really gingerly and slowly with the body. It's the first yang movement we're doing together. Taking an opportunity to bend the knees one at a time or both at the same time. Finding stillness in down dog, bringing the hips up to the sky, heels down to the mat. If you notice there's a curvature in the upper spine, try to bend the knees, micro bend in the knees, and press the rib cage towards the top of the thighs. The bottom, like you're trying to get the bottom of the rib cage to touch the tops of your thighs. Inhale, look at your hands. Exhale, walk your feet to your hands, coming into dangle or ragdoll. Feet about hip width distance apart. Drop the head and the upper body over the legs. Micro bend in the knees. Grabbing opposite elbows if it feels good to do so. Allowing gravity to separate the spaces in between your spine. If it feels good to rock side to side, you might choose to do so. Coming to stillness in ragdoll. Exhale the hands down to the mat. Inhale, press down through the feet to rise all the way up. Hands come up to the ceiling. Exhale, hands come down to heart center. This is the point where we'll be doing a little bit of movement in between our poses, our yin poses today. So come to mountain pose, feet together, arms by the sides, palms facing forward. Inhale, arms up, look up, reach up, tuck that tailbone under, engage the core. Exhale, hands come to heart center. Two more just like that, linking the movement to the breath. Inhale, arms up, look up, reach up. Being really intentional and slow with our movements. Exhale, hands come to heart center. Last one, inhale, arms up, look up, reach up. Exhale, hands come to heart center. Adding a little bit more on. Inhale, arms up, look up, reach up. Exhale, forward fold, hands come forward over the legs. Generous bend in the knees as you bow the head to the knees. Inhale, lift and lengthen. The hands can stay on the mat, your shins or your thighs as you lift the chin and chest, flatten the back. Exhale, forward fold, round over those legs. Inhale, root down through the feet to rise all the way up. Exhale, hands come to heart center. Two more just like that. Inhale, arms up, look up, reach up. Exhale, forward fold, touch the toes, bend the knees, round the spine. Inhale, lift and lengthen. Hands can be on mat, shins, or thighs. As you lift the chin and chest, look forward. Exhale, forward fold, round over those legs. Inhale, root down through the feet to rise. And exhale, hands at heart center. Last one. Inhale, arms up, look up, reach up. Exhale, forward fold, touch the toes, round the spine. Inhale, lift and lengthen. Hands can be on mat, shins, or thighs. Lift the chin and chest, look forward. And from here, exhale, plant those hands down onto the mat, stepping into plank pose. You can come into high plank or low plank by dropping the knees. Tuck the tailbone under, engage the core. Press up and into the shoulder blades. Hold this for 3, 2, 1. Curl the toes under, press the hips up to the sky, downward facing dog. From down dog, we'll be entering our next yin pose, which is dragon. Inhale, bring that right foot forward in between both hands. Drop the left knee and the top of the left foot to the mat. This is a pose where you can use any props to feel comfortable in. I'm going to use 2 blocks, one on each side of my right foot. Lift the chin and chest. Relax the left leg. The target area here is the top of the left thigh, the left hip. And this is considered a spicy pose, so people feel mild to moderate to an intense sensation pretty quickly. So notice if that's true for you, and it is, you could back out of the pose by adding more props. Bringing your hands to the right knee. Notice if you're clenching your thighs, that's a sign you've gone a little bit too deep. We'll be taking a few breaths here. We're not going to be here forever, but we are going to do 2 versions of dragon today. From here, take that right hand, bring it inside the right foot. So both hands are side by side with the right foot on to the outside of the right hand. Setting up for the lizard. You have an option to keep the body in an upright position, or you can slowly lower the upper body down by placing the elbows on the mat or a prop, or all the way down onto the ground. Inhale, add some weight to those hands. Shift the weight into the left hand. As you inhale that right arm up to the sky, the head follows the hand, a little bit of a twist. If it feels okay to do so, you might choose to bring that right hand behind the low back, or bend the left knee and reach that right hand back to grab the top of the left foot. So lots of different variations. Do what feels good in your body. Use what props help support your practice. Again, the target area is the front line of that left leg, left hip. This is a great stretch to do to get into that psoas muscle, which really affects the feeling in our low spine. It affects our posture, our stress level. If you're someone who does a lot of sitting, typically this muscle gets tight very easily. If you have the left foot, release the foot. If the hand is in a bind behind the back, inhale that right arm back up to the sky. Exhale, bring it back to the outside of the right foot. and shift the weight so the right heel comes onto the mat, hips come over the left heel, half split. Using this as just a simple release. Doing a little bit of a resonance pose here. If you need to add some movement, like some pulsations to that right knee, you might choose to do so. Giving our left hip an opportunity to regain its normal sensation, removing the stress. And then from here, we're going to shift into doing pigeon pose or swan pose, as we call it in yin, by bending that right knee again, and then heel toeing that right foot towards the left edge of the mat until the right knee comes down onto the mat. And this is a pose that's going to look different for everybody. Some people have that right foot completely parallel with the left edge of the mat, and they're able to have their torso centered directly in front of the leg. Or some people might have that right foot tucked underneath their body to have that torso centered over that right leg. It depends a great deal on your skeletal structure, which you really don't have too much control over. Some of you might feel like you need to use some extra support beneath that right leg, like perhaps a block or a pillow, something to elevate that right thigh just a little bit to help you square off to the center of the mat. Wherever you are in your pose, completely release and relax the right leg. Again, this is another spicy pose for the outside of the right hip, right glute. You can choose to maintain an upright position with the torso or make your way into a forward fold, bringing the forehead down to the mat or a prop, bringing the arms out in front of you or by your sides. There's really an infinite number of variations, choosing a version that works best for you. One of the reasons I like to do hips with heart center is because we store a lot of emotion in our hips. And people, often when we refer to emotion, they refer to our heart as the creator of the motion. And to some extent that is true, but in reality, our emotions are processed in our brain and they're stored in our body. So allowing our body to have an opportunity to release those emotions, to open up the heart center, enabling love and receptivity, will give the body and the brain an opportunity to process those emotions in a safe way. And with any yin pose that we do, you have the option to change the pose if you feel an intense physical or emotional sensation. So at any point, if the emotions become too overwhelming, you have the option to stay with it, to explore it if you're willing and ready, or come out of the pose entirely. Wherever you are in your version of swan, add some weight to those hands. Pressing the torso back to an upright position if you're not already there. Curl the toes of the left foot under behind you and straighten that right leg ever so slightly so you can bring the right leg to meet the left. Bringing both knees down onto the mat. Low plank. Exhale, lower the torso all the way down to the mat, left cheek to touch. Resonance pose on our belly. feels as though the right hip has regained normal sensation, bringing both hands beneath the shoulders again. Inhale, pressing back into low lunge with the knees onto the mat. Walking those hands back towards the knees so we're coming into tabletop. Knees beneath hips, wrists beneath shoulders. Inhale, walk those hands forward, puppy pose, heart melting pose. Forehead comes down to the mat. Hips are high, head is low. You can support this practice by adding a prop beneath the forehead if you need to. Or if you need to go a little bit deeper, you can add a prop to beneath the elbows. Sometimes raising those elbows above the head allows for a deeper stretch of the heart center and the front of the chest. If your elbows are on a prop, slowly take the elbows off of the prop. And everyone add some weight to those hands as you gently pull yourself back into tabletop. Curl the toes under on the mat beneath you. Inhale the hips up to the sky, downward facing dog. Setting up for dragon on the left side. Inhale, bring that left foot forward in between both hands. Drop the right knee and the top of the right foot to the mat. Taking any props that you might need to enter your dragon. I have 2 blocks on either side of my left foot. Starting with a lifted torso. Standard dragon. Target area here is the top of the right hip, right thigh. Relax that right leg. Notice if you are engaging your muscles anywhere. If you're doing so to protect yourself, come out of this pose a little bit. Same thing on this side. Dragon tends to be a spicy pose, going from 0 to 60 very quickly. Notice if that's true for you. The second you enter a painful physical or emotional sensation, give yourself permission to exit the pose or try it a different way. Coming into a different version of dragon, taking that left hand, bringing it inside the left foot, so both hands are right next to each other inside the left foot. Choosing to stay in an upright position here, or you can start to lower that torso down into a version of lizard that works for you. Perhaps bringing your elbows to a block or the mat. Planting that right hand down on the mat or a prop. Inhale that left arm up to the sky. The head follows the hand. A little twist in the dragon. You can keep that hand reaching up to the sky, or you can do a bind by bringing that left hand to the low spine. Or if you'd like to explore bending the right knee and reaching that left hand behind to grab the right foot, you can do that as well. Twisted dragon. Each version, notice the different sensations in the target area and which you prefer and which you don't prefer. Each version has its own benefits, and some might work best for different bodies. If If you have a bind in the foot, release the foot. If you have a bind with the hand, inhale that left hand back up to the sky. Exhale, bring it back down to frame the left foot. Shift the hips over the right heel as you straighten the left leg, half split. Left heel on the mat, just using this as a resonance pose to take the stress away from the dragon on the right side. If you'd like to add some pulsations like I'm doing, feel free to do so. Moving very slowly and mindfully so we don't injure ourselves. And when the right hip feels as though it's regained normal sensation, coming into swan on the left side or pigeon on the left. Bending the left knee, heel toeing that left foot so the foot comes to the outer edge, the right edge of the mat. Same thing on this side. If you're somebody who needs a prop beneath that left thigh, you can add a prop there. If you don't need a prop to get your hips squared off towards the middle of that leg, that left leg, you don't need to. Noticing where that foot is, perhaps it's parallel with the edge of the mat, perhaps it's tucked underneath the torso. Doesn't matter really where it is as long as it feels okay to be in this pose. Looking for a target area on the outside of our left hip. You might choose to maintain an upright position with the body or start to lower the body into a forward fold. Maybe even adding a prop beneath the forehead to support the head and the neck if you need. Just a reminder, if at any point you feel as though you've entered a painful zone, either emotionally or physically, you always have permission to change the pose in any way you need, or to exit the pose entirely. If you're in a forward fold, add some weight to those hands, bringing your torso back to an upright position. Removing any props out of the way if you need. Curling the toes of the right foot under behind you and straightening that right knee ever so slightly so you can bring the left leg back to meet the right. Low plank both knees to the mat. Exhale, lower all the way down to the mat, bringing the right ear to the mat. Resonance pose on the belly. Bringing your awareness to your hips, inside and out. Bringing your awareness to your emotional state and using that heart center to send yourself some love, some compassion. Treating yourself as you would your best friend. When it feels as though the target areas have regained normal sensation, gently roll into the back any way that is safe and comfortable for you. From the back, inhale, take a full body stretch, getting as long and tall on your mat as you possibly can. And on your exhale, roll into fetal position on the left side, stacking the right hip on top of left, right shoulder on top of left, right hands on top of left. Inhale that right arm across the sky over to the mat behind you. The head can follow the hand. With this simple spinal twist, you have permission to play with the lower body placement, perhaps bringing your knees closer to your torso or farther away. Perhaps you choose to cross one leg over the other, or straighten one leg or the other, or both. Arms can be in a capital T position out on either side of you, palms facing the sky. Or if that arm hangs out in space, that right arm, it doesn't quite get to the mat, you can let it hang if it feels good, or you can rest it on a prop, or you can bring that right hand to the hip and drop the elbow towards the mat. Making your version of the twist work for you. Once you've committed to it, completely surrender to the mat, relaxing every muscle. Inhale that right arm back across the sky over to meet the left, pausing in fetal position. Bringing the awareness to the spine, noticing as the sensations change with the seconds. Once the spine feels as though it's regained normal sensation, rolling back onto the back. On our inhale, taking another full body stretch as the arms come up overhead. Legs come out straight in front of you, getting as long and tall as you possibly can on the mat. Exhale, rolling into fetal position on the right side. Stacking the left hip on top of right, left shoulder on top of right, left hand on top of right. Inhale that left arm across the sky over to the mat behind you. Same thing on this side. You can play with the lower body placement. You can play with the upper body positioning. Gazing at the left hand would intensify the twist. Finding a version of this pose that works for you. It does not need to be the same as the other side. Once you have committed to that version, surrender all of the muscles of the body. draw that left arm back across the sky over to meet the right. Pausing in fetal position. Bringing the awareness to the spine. When it feels as though the spine is regaining normal sensation, making our way onto our back one last time. Taking any pose or any movement you feel you need to before entering Savasana. Maybe you do another full body stretch. Maybe you do happy baby. Maybe you hug both knees into your chest. Listening to your body, taking any small movements or gentle pose that you feel like you need to today before entering Savasana. But bringing the hands down by the sides, palms facing the sky. And if it feels comfortable to do so, gently close the eyes. Start by releasing and relaxing every muscle in the body, starting with the feet and the legs, allowing them to rest heavy. Relaxing the belly. Relaxing the shoulders, the arms, and the hands, allowing them to rest heavy. Relaxing the neck and the head and all of the muscles on the face, including the tongue, the jaw, your eyes, and your eyebrows. Feel completely supported by the earth beneath you as you receive the benefits from today's practice. Take a full deep inhale through the nose, filling the belly, the rib cage, and the chest with breath. Bringing your awareness to any sensations that enter the body with the breath. Wiggle the fingers and the toes. Gently rock the head from left to right like you're saying no, but slowly. When you're ready, hugging the knees into the chest, giving yourself a great big hug. Maybe choosing to rock side to side. Maybe on one of those rocks the way into fetal position on the right. Pausing there for a moment, keeping the eyes closed. And from fetal position, pressing yourself back to a comfortable seated posture. Again, keeping the eyes closed, elongating the spine, drawing shoulders away from ears. Perhaps the legs are crisscrossed or straight out in front of you. Maybe you're choosing to return to elevating those hips by sitting on a prop. Bringing your awareness back to your mat and what's drawing your attention right here, right now. Perhaps noticing any similarities or differences between the grounding posture at the start of class. Placing both hands over the heart center with the eyes closed. Repeat these words to yourself after me, either out loud or in your head. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy, healthy, and safe. Bringing your hands to heart center, honoring your practice as I honor yours. May your practice be of benefit to you and to all of those around you. Thank you very much for sharing your practice with me. I bow and honor all of you. Namaste.